isn't it? A big part. I mean, are a big part of it for sure. That's why Zelensky was literally at the Scranton, like Pennsylvania manufacturing facility, and like, dude, something that was like genuinely scary for me, at least, that didn't get a lot of media reporting. Expectations showing a hiring surge, but guess what? Illegals are the ones that are taking over those jobs. It doesn't matter.
We have breaking news now. The new jobs report is showing U.S. employers added 254,000 jobs in September, a sign of a sturdy labor market. Meanwhile, the unemployment rate fell to 4.1%, changing just slightly from last month. ABC News business reporter Alexis Christoforous is here to break down those numbers for us. Alexis, what does this tell you about the economy right now?
Wow, Diane, this is a blockbuster jobs report, and I don't really think anybody saw it coming. We see the stock market rallying on this news. This is that sweet spot. The Federal Reserve has been working so hard to attain a slowdown in inflation, a cooling off of prices, but not pushing the economy into a recession. So this report tells us that we have still a solid job market, 254,000 jobs added, and actually July and August numbers were revised to show 72,000 more jobs added than previously reported. When we take a little deeper dive in, we saw wages inched up a bit, but not enough to fan inflation once again, and also jobs added in food and services, drinking places, healthcare, government, social assistance, and construction. Those were the areas that we saw the most jobs added, Diane.
Now, just 32 days from the election, how do you think these numbers could impact what voters do at the polls?
This could, well, look, we know that the economy and inflation continue to be a top priority for voters. So these numbers are very positive. I have to think that President Biden will be coming out soon to praise these numbers. And it looks good for the Biden-Harris campaign as they move closer to the election. But this is also the last clean report we're going to get. By that, I mean before the election. And that's because the October report will reflect Hurricane Helene. It will reflect this short-lived dock workers that we saw. And there's also a work stoppage in parts of the Boeing company. So all of those things can play on the October report and skew it. So this is sort of the last clean report where we get a pretty good picture of the overall job market.
And Alexis, I just want to point out, you said Biden-Harris campaign, but I know you meant the Harris-Walz campaign, but it's been a very confusing election season.
The Biden administration.
By the way, remember, this is supposed to be the reasonable Republicans, okay? Marco Rubio, okay? Marco Rubio is supposed to be the reasonable Republican, the adult in the room. What does he have to say about the jobs report? Another fake jobs report from the Biden-Harris government today. 16 of the last 17 reports have been significantly revised downwards after media helps them with their fake headlines. But all the fake numbers in the world aren't going to fool people dealing with the Biden-Harris economic disaster every day. Here's the Fox News reaction to the jobs report.
What, David Barton is with us this morning. Great to have you here, David. All right, strong jobs report. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
It's funny because Fox Business is a business program. So while being objectively right-wing, they still have to do accurate analysis on things like this. Unlike Fox Editorial on the Fox News front, they can say whatever they want. They can be like, these jobs are fake, okay? The economy's in the pooper. But these guys still have to be relatively accurate because it's the business side. You know what I mean? So let's hear what they had to say.
I agree with Lauren. It's really hard to put a negative spin on this. It was a good jobs report. Yeah. The unemployment rate lower, the total jobs number higher. Because I'm a long-term, big picture macroeconomist, I'm always worried about the lower labor participation force. I want more people in the workforce. But as far as the percentage of people that are in the workforce and looking for a job, a good portion of them have one. It's pretty easy right now to hold a job, but at the end of the day, wages are what a lot of people are looking to, Ash, and real wages have kept up pretty good here as of late, so it's a good report.
Guess what, David Barton?
I can't conceive how Biden has 50 years of political experience and can't come up with a deal to stop this. Reagan would never let this happen. Thankfully, capitalists became laziest at the labor movement. Wait, what? I mean, Biden literally objected to putting a Taft-Hartley on the listen, do not ever expect me to lie to you. Okay. I will always be honest. If you ask me something that Biden is doing that's good, I'm gonna tell you. Okay. Honesty is the policy here. And he straight up was like, nope, I'm standing with the ILA. I believe in collective bargaining. He said those words. Okay. This is, by the way, the second time. I don't know if this is real or not. We're told Pete Buttigieg was the point man for the administration getting the agreement to suspend the port, named specifically by both sides in the press release. Is quiet but effective leadership people appreciate. Pete Buttigieg, this is the second time Pete Buttigieg has been named. If this is correct, I haven't seen it yet, but this would literally be the second time that Pete Buttigieg has actually negotiated on the side of a union quietly. Don't know if this is accurate for this one, but he was literally credited. He was credited in the union papers for the railroad by name. It wasn't Pete. It was the acting labor secretary. He's trying to steal valor. Oh, no, but the unions have credited him for it before. It's not the first time this has happened. Our members, B Trades in SoCal, heard it was Julie Su that made it happen. I think so, too. Julie Su was named by name by the ILA leader, saying she's out there door knocking for us and you know, screaming bloody. Oh, here it is. Okay, never mind. Seen some viral tweets suggesting Pete Buttigieg single-handedly resolved the port. Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su, a woman with less visibility, was at the union headquarters all day yesterday working on this, just not on TV. The ILA's president called Su terrific. Yeah. Julie Su is the acting labor secretary, chat. A person who was named directly, okay? Dockworth just told Charleston NBC affiliate that an agreement has been reached by two major points: automation and pay, and work will resume throughout the year's end while the final deal is hammered. Thank Julie Su and Pete Buttigieg by name. So they might have given Pete Buttigieg some credit. This is not the first time that this has happened. This is the second time this is happening with yet another negotiation resolving. The first time it was with the rail workers, which was obviously bad because the administration used the legislative power to stop them from, and then quietly made the railroad companies concede to their demands. Pete Buttigieg was mentioned by name once again on that deal as well. I still hate him. I still think he's a rat. But, you know, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not surprised by Pete Buttigieg being named here. However, having said that, I suspect that he's trying to beef up his bona fides for when he inevitably runs for president, to be like, see, I'm so pro-labor. I was mentioned in labor papers or whatever. Having said that, the one name that routinely was brought up was not Pete Buttigieg. Okay? The name that was routinely brought up was Julie Su on the NPR coverage. But more importantly than the NPR coverage, the person who worked behind the scenes that the ILA president himself directly named on that Fox News, on that viral Fox News hit, was Julie Su. Okay? Acting labor secretary Julie Su. But remember, Biden did also, to give him to give him props, straight up said, I don't believe in Taft-Hartley. There is such a thing as collective bargaining. He did say that. He's an old monstrous asshole who is basically tanking the Democratic Party's chances of winning this election by being such a firm, committed ultra-Zionist. But on the issue of labor, he did say that. That's just true. Make with that information what you will, but he did do that. Okay? He's our LBJ. Yeah, he is. He's our LBJ, baby. Anyway, about 12 hours after it began on Tuesday, Biden issued a statement urging the U.S. Maritime Alliance to present what he called a fair offer, citing the 800% growth in profits some ocean carriers saw in the pandemic. It's only fair that workers who put themselves at risk during the pandemic to keep ports open see a meaningful increase in their wages as well, he wrote. Biden's message to companies also tied hurricane relief efforts, noting that dock workers play an essential role in getting essential supplies to the communities affected by Hurricane Helene. He said now is not the time for ocean carriers to refuse to negotiate a fair wage. Do you understand how significant it is? Do you understand how significant it is that the sitting president is communicating the real villains of the story when mainstream media refuses to do so? He is directly addressing the companies. He's saying that the companies should do what is fair. This is very important, okay? This is utilizing the bully pulpit in a positive way for labor, okay? That's why I'm writing for. That's why I'm writing in Biden. Okay, this is you. You want to ask me why I'm writing Joe Biden in? This is it. There you have it. If not for Israel, Biden has been the most progressive president of my lifetime. Yeah, it is kind of interesting to think about, like pre the month of October, because then he also did the immigration thing in October, like on October 4th or October 5th. He was like, I'm also gonna migrants, Jack. Like if it wasn't for the month of October, like he doesn't go right wing on immigration and he doesn't do the permanent in Gaza, Jack. He is objectively the most progressive president in like the past 50, 60 years. Okay. Straight up, which is crazy to think. Dude, you're voting Clamato. It's a tomato clam drink. Nah, this is glaze. If he didn't do blank, what are you talking about? I'm just being honest with you. Like, imagine a world where the month of October does not exist. Okay. You're staring down the barrel of a guy who uniquely, as the president, stepped on a picket line and also sided with the workers on a major UAW contract renegotiation process. Okay. You are looking at a guy who geared the NLRB and the FTC to do whatever they want in terms of like going after trusts and doing trust busting on the FTC side, who is like going after abusers on the NLRB side, actively being pro-labor, openly communicating that he's being pro-labor. And on top of that, he pulled out of Afghanistan. Okay. On the foreign policy front, on the NATO end, yes, there were, there are a lot of issues that leaves, he certainly could have been better in terms of like trying to get to a deal, trying to get to the table with a deal. But beyond that, and that's like obviously foreign policy. That's just uniparty regardless. But beyond that, he would have been hailed as like an incredibly progressive carcass. And then the month of October came around and he was like, I am the most right wing that the Democrats have been outwardly in the way that we're going to migrants, Jack. Did Kamala say anything about this? Yes, she also repeated Biden, the same language that Biden repeated. At the NLRB, I was able to help get so many injunctions to get workers their jobs under Biden. How would you feel if you did half a law? Wait, what do you mean? First of all, he didn't do half. He's doing a full-blown one, okay? Oh, am I hallucinating Obama legalizing gay marriage? Okay, yes, that is very progressive. But we're talking about progressive in ways that are unique in terms of like economic policy, which has the capacity to reach out to the broadest subsects of American society. Also, it's not like Barack Obama was like, don't look at what Barack Obama and Joe Biden's statement on gay marriage was. Anyway, meanwhile, senior leaders in his administration, including National Economic Advisor Lael Brainerd, White House Chief of Staff Jeff Zients, and Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su were holding a flurry of calls to the foreign shipping companies and with the union, according to a source familiar with the discussion who was not authorized to speak. After several days of pressure, the companies agreed to put a higher offer on the table. The union accepted that offer and also agreed to extend the contract so negotiations over all other issues could resume. On Thursday night, after the tentative deal was announced, Biden issued a statement thanking all the parties for acting patriotically to reopen the ports. And the economic disaster was averted. More than $2 billion worth of goods typically flow through these ports daily, from chemicals to clothing to bourbon to bananas. The affected ports from Boston to Houston normally handle more than half of all cargo containers coming into the U.S., about 1 million containers a month, as well as more than 300,000 containers heading out of the country, according to the freight tracking company Vizion. So, how is Biden anything but a centrist, borderline conservative? If Joe Biden's considered progressive, I am rating Joe Biden's administration's policies on labor on a curve. Okay? That's just it. And the reality of the matter is, on that curve, American presidents have historically been openly and overtly anti-labor. Biden has done a bunch of that is openly and overtly pro-labor. So if you're comparing him to other American presidents and other American administrations, yes, his policies on labor are above and beyond. Okay? It is an incredibly low bar to set, but it's still true. This isn't like me saying I'm in the tank for Joe Biden, even though I am writing with Joe Biden and I will be writing his name in the upcoming election. Anyway, here's Julie Su.
Back to the jobs report. 254,000 jobs were added in the month of September, much higher than expected. Lydia Hu is outside the Labor Department with Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su. All right, Lydia, It's all yours. Take it away.
Hi there, Ash. Thank you so much. We're so pleased to be joined by Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su to talk about this morning's surprising jobs report. 254,000 jobs added when 140,000 were expected. Unemployment ticking down 4.1% when 4.2 was what was expected. I'm sure that you will probably say this is a strong jobs report, but I do want to start with this because it seems like this is changing direction. We have had a series of job reports this year that have indicated a cooling labor market. So my question to you is today's report really an exception or an anomaly?
I mean, let's look at what the jobs report have told us really since the Biden-Harris administration began. We have had a record recovery, right? The numbers of jobs created, the record low levels of unemployment. This is not just like, 4.1% once. It has been the longest stretch of unemployment at or below 4%, near 4%, since, most of us were born. That's not.
Michael Moore warns Kamala Harris move to the center could cost her the election. Don't shun progressive base. Republicans against Trump say, no, dog, who are you? What do you mean Republicans against Trump? Like, who the are you guys? This is what's so frustrating. It's like, dude, you're a newcomer, okay? How about you how about you shut up and vote for Kamala Harris, okay? Like, that's what's really frustrating about this. It's like, no, those are the guys who need to shut the up and hold their nose and vote for Kamala Harris, as Kamala Harris is supposed to, in a normal world, advocate for, progressive policies. All right. If you absolutely despise Donald Trump, then yeah, go out and vote for Kamala regardless. There are far greater numbers of progressives that are reliably voting for the Democratic Party than there are these like Republicans against Trump. I hate this. Some news in my look at Harris's GOP outreach. Our Revolution, founded by Bernie Sanders, polled progressive activists and found that 1 in 4 knew someone considering a third-party protest vote now. Kamala Harris chases the disaffected Republican vote. She is genuinely hemorrhaging the base of support. And then all these dumbasses are going to turn around and be like, well, what do you expect? Of course, we're going to listen to the Republicans that voted for us because you guys won't. It's like, dude, you're pushing these people away. They are responding to the things that you are communicating. What the do you expect? Oh, not that it matters, because honestly, they don't give it. This is what happened in 2016. They didn't give it. They didn't learn the lessons. They don't care. I mean, look at this. Look. Kamala Harris, a radical liberal who would raise taxes, take away in health insurance, and explode the size of power of the federal government. She wants to recreate America in the image of what's happening in the streets of Portland and Seattle. We won't give her the chance. That's what Liz Cheney said in August 11, 2020. I quote retweeted it yesterday. I said, love that the Kamala campaign is doing an event with this person. Liberals love laughing at Trump when he brings up Tulsi Gabbard on stage like she's going to siphon votes from Dems, but then will declare this move by their own campaign as brilliant in the same breath. It's objectively stupid. It's stupid in the exact same ways that the other move is stupid, right? Another thing I brought up in terms of about the Kamala Harris campaign with Liz Cheney was Kamala Harris is currently talking alongside Liz Cheney, celebrating Cheney's endorsement instead of changing course on the objectively unpopular neocon policies of the current admin she's supposed to replace. Stopping Israel is not only the moral imperative, it is also popular. And yet, nobody cares. Everyone keeps pointing to like how low in the interests of the American voters Israel actually is. When you should be, that should be my argument. Yeah, it's low, which is why you can change trajectory without incurring any sort of penalties in an effort to legitimately bring new voters to your side in much larger numbers. Anyway, but nobody listens to me, okay? What do I know? After all, I'm just some dumb Twitch streamer. What do I know? What do I know?
Not an anomaly, and the fact that we continue to see robust job growth across multiple industries, not an anomaly. Now, the story of this economy was definitely not predicted, though, right? 4 years ago, let's just think about exactly where we were 4 years ago. In the last administration, it was September. Back to school meant back to Zoom. We're in the middle of a global pandemic, and there was no national strategy to get it under control. October, kids were being told, trick or treat is being canceled. We're in a very different place now, not because of 1 month, but because of really strong economic policies that have powered a historic recovery.
Well, let's talk more about this data, because baked in here too, we are seeing some revisions. And what's different in this report is that we're seeing revisions to the upside. July, for example, excuse me, adding 55,000 jobs. That is a change from what we have seen over the past year. Coming into this report, we had actually seen revisions to the downside. The Labor Department reporting that they had over-reported job growth by 800,000. So I'm wondering, how can we even trust that this data is accurate when we are seeing wild gyrations in the revisions?
Well, I would dispute the characterization of wild gyrations. Again, month after month, there has been job growth, period, to the tune of some 16 million over the period of, of this administration. The last administration was one of only 2 to lose jobs from the time they came into the time they left. But let's talk about the revisions, because the reason why these numbers are considered the gold standard, the reason why they're relied on for everything from markets to economic policy, is because it really is the most robust collection of data about the state of the job market.
If that's so, then how can we see revisions 8,000 to the downside before, and now we see job revisions to the upside?
I'm glad you asked that, because revisions are a part of the process. We report the data as it comes in. The reason I can come out here every month and report them is that we give people a very narrow window to tell us what happened in the month. They have 13 days to report it. Some people don't make that, right? I'm sure you as a student, I as a student, sometimes we miss, but once we report it, it gets integrated, for sure. But it gets integrated into the numbers. And so the revisions actually prove just how transparent and reliable they are, because we report the facts as we see them, and the facts are a very good story.
Let's drill down into some of those sectors, because you mentioned a few of them where you're seeing some job growth. But one area where we are not seeing job growth is manufacturing, and that is concerning. In this report, we saw 7,000 manufacturing jobs lost in the country. The expectation was 5,000, and that's continuing what is troubling to some, a trend of declining manufacturing jobs. According to our good colleague Edward Lawrence, who usually has this post, the 3-month average now is roughly 9,300 jobs lost per month in manufacturing. So what is wrong with manufacturing in America?
Again, let's look at the overall picture. So manufacturing jobs have grown under this administration, also not by accident, right? Part of the Biden-Harris Investing in America agenda.
I think it's roughly 160,000 jobs that have been added under the administration for
Exactly.
manufacturing.
So added is the point, right? It is inaccurate to say that we haven't grown manufacturing, and we've grown it not by accident.
What's the trend now? Why are we seeing it seems like a change? Because for the month after month recently this year, we're seeing a downward decline in manufacturing jobs.
So the reality is, we are now opening up manufacturing facilities in parts of the country where they had been closed in the last administration. I visited them. Jobs where people had to leave their community, leave their families to go work somewhere else are now able to come home. You're right, though. We're not done. We've got more work to do on this.
Isn't it? A big part. I mean, are a big part of it for sure. That's why Zelensky was literally at the Scranton, Pennsylvania manufacturing facility, and dude, something that was genuinely scary for me, at least, that didn't get a lot of media reporting was talking about how America's endless support for continued wars. Okay, America's endless support for continued wars was actually, oh my God, I thought this was a joke. It's real. Kamala Harris will appear on Alex Cooper's Call Her Daddy podcast next week, one of the top podcasts for women in the U.S. The interview will be focused on reproductive rights. Oh my Lord. Okay, we'll move on from that story. I'll get back to what I was saying. One of the things that is truly scary about America's future is trying to sell the idea of a war economy to the Americans as a positive, because see, look, we're making artillery shells in domestic manufacturing. Do you see what I'm saying? If they start packaging a pro-war sentiment amongst the American working class, they try to actively say look, these wars are actually positive for us because you get good jobs. You get good paying jobs. That is a devastating prospect. We kind of do that already, but it's in a weird way. We don't we do that, but in a weird way, we don't openly say it. It's basically the difference between calling it the Department of Defense but then switching the narrative to directly saying, we are now going to have the most lethal military, right? The optics on that, when you start saying the quiet part out loud, That to me spells a change in attitude. Like when you're no longer trying to even hide the truth. That means that things are going to get worse. We must do all of our part and fight for freedom from the workers in Scranton who make Pennsylvania the arsenal of democracy to the brave Ukrainians protecting their country. We stand with Ukraine in their just defense of their homeland in the face of Russian aggression. My policy always is, it doesn't matter, never sign artillery shells. Okay? I think it's a gross practice. Even if it's a just war, it's still a gross practice. I think it's like disgusting to do. Okay? And in many cases, it's also not a just war regardless. Artillery shells, even if those artillery shells are always going to hit like Russian targets, it still doesn't change the reality that you are literally signing a... I think that you should always be across the board. Maybe I'm too much of a... I just think that like the optics of this is awful, straight up, because you have no assurances that that is not going to end up a child. Make it like a letter. The name written is who it gets delivered to. Yeah, you are ending a life. You are ending a life, no matter what. You know, you are saying, I love ending life. I don't like it. I think it's nasty. I thought you weren't an optics, Andy. I mean, the only reason why I care about optics in a situation like this is to point out that like, these are the people who care about optics. So if they're dropping the optics side of the equation, that means they're gearing up for more and more right-wing sentiment. Do you understand? It's a terrifying prospect for the future of America, where we are going. That's what it feels like. When the optics guys, the liberals for the most part, are dropping the optics, they're basically saying this is the direction that we're moving towards. And I don't like that. I also think that the morality of it is a dog to sign an artillery shell in general. But it is what it is. So yeah, over the summer, a group of former Nikki Haley supporters who now back Kamala Harris told her presidential campaign how she could close the deal. Harris could emphasize ironclad support for Israel's security. She might commit to appointing at least one reasonable Republican to a higher level cabinet position. Why not talk about energy dominance after picking a moderate running mate? It's crazy because she did all of those things verbatim. Like, is the Nikki Haley voters for Kamala Harris the only people that she's listening to? This is crazy. The Haley voters working group didn't get everything on the list. Harris bypassed Governor Shapiro and Andy Beshear, picking the more progressive Tim Walz as her running mate. But this week, Harris campaigned alongside Liz Cheney and Walz, told a debate audience that she'd have an all-of-the-above energy policy and keep producing more natural gas and more oil. And the vice president said in her major interview in August that she'd include a Republican in her cabinet. Mission accomplished. They're moving towards the policies, the center of the country embraces, said Robert Schwartz, co-founder of Haley Voters for Harris, and now a senior advisor to the Haley Voters Working Group. There were some things on the list that they were going to do anyway, but it's been fun to see them moving in our direction. To the frustration of progressive Democrats, most of them biting their tongues until the election, the Harris-Walz campaign entered the election's final stretch with the party's most conservative messaging in years. Harris didn't just stand with Cheney. She called the former House GOP conference chair an extraordinary national leader, a true patriot. She didn't just recant her old pledge to ban fracking. She told Pennsylvania media that she cast the tie-breaking vote to open up more fracking leases, and she promised to maintain the most lethal fighting force in the world. The Trump campaign has labeled all of this a ruse, a San Francisco liberals' makeover, just in time for early voting. Trump campaign spokesman Stephen Chung derided Cheney this week as a stone-cold loser shilling for a weak and failed and dangerously liberal Harris. In swing states, the campaign and its allied PACs continue to pound Harris voters over progressive positions she took during the doomed 2020 presidential campaign, but abandoned in the White House. They are matched by paid Democratic messaging that has reintroduced Harris as a border state prosecutor who will deliver a middle-class tax cut, and by interviews and speeches where the Democrat ticket boasts that they own it, in Harris's case, won't hesitate to use them. We have moved right on every issue. It is insane. Like, when Joe Biden became the presidential candidate, I was shocked that the Democratic Party had once again moved towards such a conservative guy. Okay? What's even crazier now, however, is that Kamala Harris is up the ante in terms of her conservative messaging. It is crazy. The Democrats most frustrated by Harris's messaging are not threatening to bolt the party or abandon Trump. They do worry that other people might, and Harris is not doing everything she could to keep the working class voters who drifted right after 2016. Our Revolution, a progressive group founded by Bernie Sanders after his 2016 primary bid ended, polled 1,300 activists in swing states last month to gauge whether Harris had a problem. The result, first provided to Semaphore was that 1 in 4 activists knew someone who was considering a third-party protest vote. The group would focus on contacting 1.2 million people who supported Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren in the primaries, hoping that Harris would make that job easier. You can't take progressives for granted, which I think the campaign is doing, said Our Revolution Executive Director Joseph Giver-Gezi. When I think about Wisconsin, I think about Foxconn and Trump's broken promise to bring it there. I think about Scott Walker starting around public sector unions. I don't think about campaigning with Liz Cheney in the birthplace of the Republican Party. Activists who have demanded Harris support an arms embargo in Israel have grown particularly frustrated. Last month, the uncommitted movement of Democratic delegates announced that it could not endorse Harris, and its members would make their own minds up after the Harris campaign refused to add a Palestinian American speaker to a DNC lineup with numerous anti-Trump Republicans. I think that Harris is doing the right thing, drifting more right at the start of the election. The left voters are cemented. She needs to collect the center. Yeah, that's not true, but it doesn't matter because you're going to repeat that. Whether the Democrats win, you're going to repeat that. Whether the Democrats lose, you're going to repeat that. That's it. What is the center? What a lot of people fail to recognize in the dynamic American median voter's mind is that there are incredibly contradictory things that they believe. Oftentimes, things that are directly at odds with one another. What you are supposed to do as a good campaign is identify what some of these top issues are, top 5 issues are. It's not black and white. There's a gray area in between. Yes, dude, it is. But that doesn't benefit what you're saying, you know? That is the argument I'm making. It's not black and white. That is the reason why you have this insane thing where QAnon supporters will be like, I'm anti-big corporation, I'm anti-big pharma. And also, that's why I'm voting for the Republican Party to deregulate businesses. Okay? American voters are pretty dumb. And what you fail to recognize is that the center is not directly in the center of all issues. The center doesn't mean, oh, I actually want, 30% less Holocaust on the migrant population. That, like, no one votes like that. Okay? There are a bunch of different things that they hear on their day-to-day, and they pick up on it, and they go, okay, well, this person actually represents this interest that I have, so I'm going to vote for them. That's how it works. A lot of people are stupid enough to think that, like, every American voter is literally making an accurate assessment and going, you know what? I'm glad that the Kamala Harris campaign is triangulating to the center on the issue of immigration. I really do think personally that, we should build concentration camps just 30% less. I don't want mass deportation. I want pretty high levels of deportation. No one thinks that way. The median voter or the average American ultimately thinks both at the same time that there should be mass deportations by 60%, but also that mass amnesty should be delivered to Americans that have been working on U.S. soil for years and years. I'm a centrist. I believe in policies the majority of America supports, like single payer, many more restrictions, a carbon tax on oil companies, high access to abortions, higher taxes on the rich, and so on. All majorities support, all definitionally centrist positions. Exactly. That's what's funny about this process is that, like, Fango Lives is correct. Okay. Those are majoritarian positions. Okay. And yet none of these things are represented by the Democratic Party, and they're not represented by the Republican Party either. The Democratic Party is presenting a false narrative that there is a reasonable voter in the middle there that wants, like, the Republican Party's positions, but just like a little bit less than that. The base of the Democratic Party does not get super excited about Vice President Harris pursuing Cheney harder than she's pursuing the voters for whom is the top policy issue, said Abbas Alawieh, a co-founder of the group, in the call about the decision. That is a flawed approach, given that the majority of voters in our country want to stop the unconstitutional flow to not just Benjamin Netanyahu, but to endless. Cheney is the poster child for endless. Yeah. Hasan, I think you're missing a key component in this. Big donors. Corporations don't want Trump because of volatility, but they will not fund Kamala if she goes too far left. That is the real reason for the center-right position, in my opinion. Don't agree with all of that at all, though. Yes, you're absolutely right. No, that is the reason. Both parties care about their corporate benefactors more. Republicans get to hammer on the culture narratives and the culture issues that they can laser in on that don't disrupt the regular order of business in terms of their deregulatory agenda, in terms of their tax cut agenda, which benefits major corporations and the super wealthy, right? The Democrats, on the other hand, have to set up a counter against the Republicans. They have to turn around and act like they are actually against a lot of the things that the Republicans are openly for. This presents a problem for them, however, because they can't literally be like, no, we're the same as the Republicans. We're just gay. Okay? They openly say that, then people are going to be like, all right, well, then I'm voting for the Republicans then. But that is precisely what's going on with the Democratic Party. The reason why the Democratic Party does that, however, is that they create a sense of stability that the Republican Party has lost in the eyes of the corporate benefactors, or at least some key sectors that care about that sort of thing. That's why, when it comes to oil and gas giants, they are deeply invested in the Republican Party. But some of these other industries are more invested in the Democratic Party. But ultimately, they all align when it comes to never increasing wages, never bettering the environment for labor and union participation. They're all on board regardless of whichever side they land on in terms of who they are voting for or who they're giving money for, who they're giving money to. Sorry. Jason Call, the campaign manager for Jill Stein's Green Party presidential bid, argued that the real Kamala Harris continues to reveal who she is. For Harris' campaign with Liz Cheney, while trumpeting Cheney's endorsement at every opportunity, is a perfect illustration of how the parties over and Wall Street are fundamentally converging and leaving the working people behind. The pro-Harris Republican rebuttal to this is simple. The left is making demands that could cost Harris. Moderate and conservative voters are just asking her to beat Trump. Endorsers like Cheney have even played up their differences. We have plenty of policy disagreements with Vice President Harris, she said in Wisconsin, to underscore that Trump is a unique national emergency that transcends debates over party platforms. Even on substantive issues where Harris has moved toward them, like energy, the shift had little to do with their influence and far more to do with things like surging energy prices after the Ukraine and swing state job distribution. Former Illinois Rep. Joe Walsh, a Republican whose campaigned in swing state for Harris, said the voters he met were interested in defending democracy and didn't have many other litmus tests. Promising to be a conventional president who governs for everyone may be enough. Okay, if that's the case, well, she's definitely going to defend democracy. Now she can actually fucking advocate for more progressive policies then. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't seem like these guys only care about that, do they? Because if they only cared about that, then they wouldn't also say, if you don't do all of this stuff, if you don't become the gay version of the Republican Party, we will literally not vote for you ever. Seems like they don't give a shit about the defending democracy angle all that much. It's about who you take for granted in terms of voters and who you don't, who you are willing to cast aside. Kamala Harris's campaign has actively made the choice to cast aside any kind of progressive base of support, but it is unfair to simply call this the progressive base of support. And I don't like the framing on this article by friend of the show, Dave Weigel, for that reason, because it's not just the progressive base of support that find these policies popular. Okay, that is precisely the reason why you see incredibly progressive ballot initiatives win by larger percentages than whoever the state swings for in the general election always. Okay, that's it. People slap on the progressive sticker and say, oh, you just want a pony. You want a unicorn. You want everything. Blah, 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 blah. We can never get this stuff. You're so stupid on issues that pertain to the real material problems that most Americans face. Okay? This is why I always go back to the one thing that Kamala Harris, either on accident or deliberately, landed on that was objectively considered radical by the media and yet was very popular. Price gouging. I am going to fight against corporate price gouging in the grocery sector. 83% popularity rating on that point, regardless of the litany of attacks launched against it. Why? Because Americans see the prices of eggs and go, that's unacceptable, dog. That's it. The lesson you have to learn from that is that this is not about the progressive wing or the progressive base of the party. This is about the party being objectively popular across the board. That's it. She has made things easier. She's not a crazy lefty. She's been inclusive. Her convention speech was Reagan-esque in many ways, said Walsh. I'm Brian Me. David's view. The progressives who don't like the Harris campaign's approach disagree on what needs to change. Some believe that there are popular pro-labor Biden policies that Harris doesn't talk enough about, enabling Trump to rush in the gap with his promises. Trump and Vance repeatedly claimed that they, not Biden, put a cap on insulin prices for seniors, which is a bit of a tell here. That's right. That's a good one. Some are focused tightly on Arab American voters, warning that Biden and Harris are getting played by Benjamin Netanyahu, who wants Trump back in the White House and would benefit it if anti-war voters give up on the Democrats. I see two things happening here. One, the electorate has moved right on immigration since 2016 when Hillary Clinton distanced herself from the Obama administration's deportation policies, and since 2020 when anger at Trump's family separation policies peaked. Democrats have taken their openings when Trump has been callous or dishonest about immigration. Walz said in his debate with Vance that the GOP ticket exploited the city of Springfield, Ohio to dehumanize and villainize Haitians with temporary residency status. They did it once. That is like such a minor note. They should have been literally screaming from the rooftops every single damn day about how insane it is that Republicans are literally sending threats to a Republican district in Springfield, Ohio, because Donald Trump and J.D. Vance lied about Haitians eating cats and dogs, an objectively depiction of documented migrants living on U.S. soil and participating in the American economy in meaningful ways. I am losing my mind. That's not enough. They should have been saying it way more. Because if they were saying it way more, more people would write about it in the news. More people would read about it in the news. Commentators have the capacity to change people's opinions a little bit, especially if there is a ton of media movement on this process. Republicans do a very good job with this. They laser in on a non-issue and turn it into a major issue all the time, especially when it's electorally beneficial for them. Democrats never do this. Democrats literally sit around and wait for an issue to drop on their laps, and even then they still flub it. But the broader context is Trump gaining with non-white voters as he promises mass deportation and Democrats having to concede ground in response. Part of that reason is because there is no counter narrative against the undocumented migrant problem. It is not a problem at all. As material conditions worsen, Americans become more reactionary. Okay? On the one hand, the Democratic Party is supposed to advocate to solve these material problems that the American working class is experiencing, and on the other hand, communicate that these people are not any different than you. But they're not doing that, and that's how we are going towards Germany. I don't know how people don't see this. You have to be delusional not to recognize this, okay? Economic instability and economic volatility turns people into angry demons, and if there's only one party that's saying, I see you, I know why you're mad, and I can tell you exactly what the reason is, it's the people that don't speak your language. They're scary. You're going to go, okay, well, I agree with you. Yeah, I am angry. You are recognizing that I'm angry. If the other party is saying, no, everything is fine, actually. Everything is fine. You just want a $50,000 tax credit for your startup podcast. We're going to do the opportunity economy. You're going to turn around and be like, you suck my... No, I believe that other guy. That other guy at least recognizes that I'm mad. Yeah, he's right. I think it is the Haitian migrants, actually. That's how it works. That is precisely how this works. For years and years, I have talked about GOP, Texas GOP Latino outreach. For years, I have talked about this. Texas GOP Latino outreach is now national, okay? It is the Republican Party's national outreach. That's why you're seeing the Hispanic voting bloc swing towards the Republicans in very meaningful ways, okay? You have to understand something here. A lot of people just go, why are these Latinos like voting for Donald Trump when he says like they're rapists and drug dealers? They don't see themselves as that. They see themselves as documented American citizens. They see themselves in a different capacity as the Hispanic population in the United States of America firmly gets billed under the white banner, and this is already happening in this country, while the Democratic Party simultaneously does not address any of the material circumstances that Latino voters historically respond to in a positive manner, in Texas especially, okay? Especially young Latinos respond very positively to fiscally progressive policies, okay? Not even just young Latino voters, actually. Old Latino voters also outcompete every other voting bloc, every other demographic in terms of their analysis on bigger government initiatives, which is the most reactionary framing you can slap onto this. Like, they want social safety nets. If the Democratic Party does not do that and then does not present that to them, then they're not really presenting anything to them. And then the Republican Party can turn around and beef up the Catholicism angle. The Republican Party can turn around and say, guess what, dude? These guys don't want to do anything except for transing your youth, okay? They want to make your children gay and transgender. They want to do bottom surgery on your youth. And especially if you are a low information voter, especially if you are, if you fit the bill of an underserved community that historically does not have higher levels of educational attainment, you are more susceptible to that sort of misinformation. So obviously, that has been profoundly successful in Texas, a state that is firmly Republican, that has a ton of Latino voters. The Republican Party saw that, and they realized, like, oh, dude, this, like, all this anti-immigrant sentiment doesn't actually work against us, especially if we at least still identify some of the things that Latino voters care about, okay? Social conservatism. So then they use the social conservatism angle as a way to win over Latino voters. That's it. That's how it works. And I've been talking about this for years, dude. I've been talking about this for years. More frequently, this is literally the way my parents think, lol. They're anti-immigrant immigrants. Very cool. Los Peoples, thank you for the 5 get the subs, allowing 5 people to no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. Here's a 3-minute ad break now. Democrats' advantage with Latino voters continue to shrink. Harris leads Trump nationally among Latinos 54% to 40%, but Democrats' edge is at its lowest level in the last 4 presidential cycles. What ends up happening is the Latino voters that are younger, that do care about immigration, that don't want the dehumanizing language, see it from the Democratic Party as well. They get frustrated. They're like, I don't want to vote for this. And the other group of Latino voters that are maybe older, especially a little bit more socially conservative, look to the Republican Party and say, well, they're saving us. They're giving us the things that we want. The Democrats are not giving us anything. I don't care about the social progressive. I would still vote for the Democratic Party if the Democratic Party at least, like, you know, defended my material interests, but they're not doing that. So I'm just going to vote for the Republican Party. This is something that I always talk about. People vote for people that give them something, okay? The expectation that you're always going to be in a defensive posture when you're voting is only going to shrink your base of support year over year, and that's precisely what the Democrats rely on. It is a very stupid way to try and win elections. You cannot specifically use the duopoly to your benefit like this every election cycle and hope for the best possible results, unless you lose and then people remember how it is when Republicans are in power and then they turn around and vote for you. And that's precisely what happened with Donald Trump in 2016. But people have a short memory. They have forgotten how it was for the Republicans to be in charge. One major thing that the Democrats could have used in the Haitians are eating cats and dogs narrative that was going on is the arrogant and entitled way in which some of the dumbest, most assholes in society were screaming from the rooftops despite the fact that they were wrong. That is a immediate reminder for everyone what it was like when Trump was president. Okay? That's it. You could just point to that. You could point to abortion. You could be like, look, remember, this is what happens when Republicans win. Okay? They push these policies. Many people think, oh, I want these policies. You can use abortion as an argument for immigration, for being pro-immigration and being anti-Republican immigration strategy. You could be like, a lot of people think that they want this, but when it happens, they don't want it. They think it's brutal. They think it's barbaric. Okay? That's it. Because a lot of Americans are like, oh, mass deportation now. Mass deportation now. I love mass deportation. I think it's fine. What? I think it's fine if the U.S. is making their border policy more rigid. There's a serious underground economy trafficking migrants around the Americas to both the U.S. and other countries in Latin America. What? I think there's a real angle about illegal immigration that you miss. There's a real underground. The migrants aren't themselves the problem. The people who are moving them are. Yeah, dude, how do you fix that? You fix that by streamlining the process of migration, not by making a rigid border. Literally think about this a little bit, okay? Greg Kazar talks about this so perfectly, okay? He's right. Hardline, rigid approach to border policies benefits the cartel. If you want to stop the flow of human trafficking, you have to serialize and process migrants better. You have to fix the migrant process. people that have no other options that need to come into the United States of America that are escaping are going to take any measure they can. Prohibition of alcohol did not work. It was an unsuccessful policy. Demonstrably, it just creates a black market. If you want to eviscerate the black market, you have to make it safer and easier for people to come into the United States of America. I'm from South America, dog. The migrants are the victims here. I don't give a fuck where you're from, dumbass. It doesn't matter. You're still stupid on this point, okay? It's so frustrating when people just do standpoint theory to me. Like, oh, dude, I'm sorry. You're from South America, so I guess I should just let you make an idiotic proposition here. You're pointing to a real problem, a problem that I also understand exists. I'm telling you what the solution is, and you're like, nah, it's better if the Democrats actually go along with the Republican agenda that is born out of white supremacy that dehumanizes you anyway. Like, what do you mean? I don't care about I've never cared about this. Just so you understand, this stuff doesn't work in this liberal community, okay? Maybe in other liberal communities, you could do standpoint theory. You could turn around and be like, listen, you don't understand. I'm Latino. I'm from South America, okay? How dare you speak to me like this? This is not one of those communities. Plenty of people come in here and they're like, well, Hasan, I'm a black person, and it's really inappropriate that you're telling me what it's like. I don't care. I don't care. Anyway, I didn't say it's the only solution. No, you also said that you, one, assume that I'm missing an angle on immigration, okay, an angle that I'm not missing on. You assumed that the Democratic Party's solution, which is white nativist, right-wing immigration bills that they're writing as alongside the Republican Party is the adequate solution to this problem. It's not. It's only going to worsen the problem. If that's not the solution that you think is the apt one, why are you defending it? The only thing HasanAbi doesn't suffer from is making generalizations from his own experiences. That's literally not what I said. I think it's fine that the U.S. is making their border policy more rigid. There's a serious underground economy trafficking migrants. The U.S. making their border policy more rigid unironically helps the underground economy trafficking migrants. That is my point. And I don't think you're understanding that. Okay? This is the silliest way to backtrack on your point. I don't know why we're still debating this issue. We're going to move on for the sake of your own, so that I'm not defending it. I just said there's a reason to secure a border, not to make a concentration camp. We're done. That's fine. I'm not going to reiterate my argument over and over again. It seems like you are just refusing to hear. I think you just triggered a bunch of people when you said Republicans only appeal to Hispanics on the grounds of social conservatism. Every conservative Latino just got activated. Yeah. I already ran the 3-minute ad break at the top of the hour. Anyway, 2, Democrats are reaching out to the voters who make the fewest demands. That doesn't mean they're ignoring their traditional base, but it does explain why they feel safe relying on them alone. Bailing out the Teamsters' pensions didn't help them secure the union's endorsement. It's at best an open question whether Biden marching in a picket line with UAW and Harris backing striking longshoremen will help them with rank-and-file members. Democrats can mitigate their decline with union voters on economic issues, but they can't in a few weeks abandon the environmentalism or cultural liberalism that has moved many of them towards Trump. I don't think it's the environmentalism that moves many towards Trump. I just don't. Okay, cultural liberalism, certainly. That definitely is the thing. Because by and large, I think the median American voter, if we're being super serious and super honest about this, by and large, I think the median American voter is, okay, what do I mean by this? I mean, I'm exaggerating, right? They have nationalistic sentiments. They are socially not very progressive, okay? But fiscally, they are. Like, that literally is the case. So if you want to defend marginalized communities, okay, you have to package it with popular, progressive economic policy. Okay? That's it. Most Americans either don't give it about the gay stuff or they just kind of hate it. Okay? But you know what they do like? Money in their pockets. So if you don't do that, because that is the way to defend marginalized communities as well. You're like, yep, we're going to give everybody health care. And you're going to shut up if trans people get health care. What's wrong with you? Who cares? That's the way to do it. Tim Walz actually communicates this stuff pretty well, right? Like he, or at least he used to. How can you say that the median voter is socially conservative when LGBTQ rights have expanded and the backlash to Roe has been so strong, etc., in recent years? Like, socially conservative in the sense that if you make that your major point If you make that your agenda, most people are going to be like, oh, I don't really care. How does this help me? They're selfish. It comes from a place of selfishness. In what conceivable way have LGBTQ rights have been expanded? I'd like to know this. I think people just talk about like gay rights, gay marriage. That's pretty much what they're talking about. That's more so an argument for when systems that are beyond your control actually move in a more progressive direction. A lot of people don't really care. Okay. A lot of people just go, okay, this is the new norm. Who cares? And they move on. The Republicans have to desperately fight back against that. The problem, on the other hand, is that a lot of people just broadly gesture towards like this is the argument I make for trans rights all the time. Okay. The argument I make for trans rights all the time is that most people just by and large don't care. Okay. Republicans do a very good job of making you care in a negative way. But that oftentimes also causes a lot of people to go, ugh, you're kind of gross. Why do you care about this so much? You seem a little crazy. All right. That's basically what happened in the 2022 midterm elections. The trans panic stuff came across as weird to the, average voter, to the normal voters. Okay. But that does not mean that like, if the Democratic Party was like exclusively running on like defending trans rights or whatever, that most Americans would be like, this is great. Because by the numbers, there aren't that many trans people. People don't have access to trans people. People don't see the humanity in trans people. Every trans person understands this, right? So the way to convincingly defend trans rights is to say, we have a broad agenda that is human focused. We do not want you to hate your neighbors, okay? Doesn't matter what their background is. It is unacceptable to do so. And we're going to give everybody health care. And everybody includes trans people as well. Okay? That's it. That's the way to do it, with fiscally progressive economic policies that you tack on social liberalism into, not the other way around. I've learned that people will forget what you've said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Anyway, also that manufactured interest in social issues they don't care about is only possible when no left-wing economic policy is even proposed. Yes, it has no traction when universalist safety nets policies are actually the other side of the conversation. Thank you. That's the other side of the equation that we often forget. You are absolutely correct. What do I always say? Another thing that I repeat myself over and over again when the election cycle happens is that if Democrats gave Republicans something against, like universal and otherwise progressive, but like universal social safety nets, okay, beefing up our social safety nets, then the Republicans would have to present themselves in the least popular ways possible by actively fighting against social safety nets like Social Security. And that's objectively unpopular. But the Democrats don't even do that. Similarly, organizers insist that Harris could shift votes if she broke with Biden administration support for Israeli funding, and polling shows that it could be popular even as it would set off an explosive political fight. But soft Republican voters and their advocates are asking for no change at all. What's the harm in thanking them for that freely offered support and seeing how deep that sentiment runs? I just don't think that it is a successful strategy, especially if it comes with the purging of like normal Americans, not just progressives, not card-carrying activists, okay? I'm talking about like regular-ass Americans who are just like, yeah, I don't really feel like the Democrats have my interest in their minds. A lot of Americans feel left behind, okay? They feel forgotten. They feel like the Democratic Party does not have their best interest in mind. And the Democratic Party doesn't do enough to actively communicate against that. As a matter of fact, in many instances, the way they communicate to the broader majority is that they don't actually care about your material interests. That's the problem. Anyway, my dad is a Jew. I have family in Israel, and even he would support Kamala if she secured a ceasefire through an arms embargo. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if your dad is a single issue Israel voter, but there are single issue Israel voters who also want this. I mean, the hostage families, for example. In the New Yorker, Al Press asked where Harris has avoided the mistakes of Hillary Clinton, which reached out to Republicans but took union laborers for granted. Certainly improved on the optics. Clinton didn't visit a single union hall in Michigan or Wisconsin after she became the nominee. In the Washington Post, Liz Goodwin and Jacqueline Alamany look at why the vast majority of progressives are grinning and bearing it. On immigration in particular, members of the left of Harris's stances are avoiding harsh critiques as she faces Trump, hoping to hash out their differences after the election. Are you auto Jew? if your dad is Jew, or is that the mother? No, Judaism is matrilineal. What the fuck is an auto Jew, man? Like a Jewish person that is really interested in automobiles? Is that what you're saying? Auto Jew. Anyway. Let's get back to the jobs. We talked about the jobs report pretty aggressively at this point. Let's hear what the Biden surprise appearance at the White House press briefing was.
Hey, folks. My name's Joe Biden.
Welcome, Mr. President.
Welcome to the swimming pool.
This is great.
Hey, look, folks, good afternoon. The past 2 days we've gotten some very good news about the American economy. Just yesterday, shipping carriers, after some discussion, an International Longshoremen Union came to an agreement to keep ports in the East Coast and the Gulf ports open. We averted what could have become a major crisis for the country, and a tentative agreement which includes record wage increases for dock workers and shows the importance of collective bargaining and represents, I think, critical progress, a strong contract. I especially want to thank the carriers, the port operators, and the Longshoremen's Union for reaching this agreement at a time when the nation has experienced such terrible...
Who do you think exists less, single-issue pro-Israel Democrats or single-issue pro-Cheney Democrats? Single-issue pro-Cheney Democrats, for sure. Because there's like 3 total pro-Cheney Democrats out there. Not even. It's just Liz Cheney and Cheney, so 2. The number is, the actual number I can give you confidently is 2. There are 2 pro-Cheney Democrats out there. Liz Cheney and Cheney. That's it.
Devastation from Hurricane Helene. It was truly a service to the American people for all these parties to come together to respond to our request to keep the ports open. I was determined to avert a crisis at this moment because it's a critical moment. If we didn't do this now, we'd have a real problem. I also want to thank my White House team for the work. They worked around the clock to bring the parties together. But today, we got more incredible news. Although the strength of the American economy it's about the strength of the American economy. New jobs report, as you all know, you've been reporting, created 250,000 jobs in September. The expectation was for 150,000 jobs in September, which has far exceeded that number. Not only the previous 2 months was the previous 2 months was revised up 75,000 jobs. And from the very beginning, we were told time and again that the policies we were pursuing, we'd put forward weren't going to work, make things worse, including some of the other team are still saying they're going to make things worse. But we've proven them wrong. You know, we've told our we were told our American rescue plan was too big and it would crowd out private investment. We proved them wrong. We vaccinated a nation and got immediate economic relief to people in need. When I came to office determined to end trickle-down economics and grow the economy from the middle out and the bottom up, I know you're tired of hearing me say that over and over again, but that was the policy, that it remains the policy. Because when you do that, everyone does well. When the middle class grows, the nation's stronger. And the nation's stronger when there's a strong union movement as well. We were told it wouldn't work, but I was also determined to do what was ignored for much too long. Presidents have been authorized since the 30s to be able to spend the money given by Congress to spend the money on hiring American workers and using American product where they were available. And that's what we did. We were told that was going to be a big problem. But all the money I was authorized to spend by the Congress has gone to to hiring American workers and using American products. We were told it wasn't going to be. We were told that was going to be a big problem, but it's working. We're also told that our historic laws to invest in America and all Americans would crowd out private sector investment. Well, that was proven wrong too. We've attracted nearly $1 trillion since we've come to office in private.
By the way, my comment was in response to the standpoint theory argument. That's probably why you're the best commentator on the platform, because you use facts and data to inform your opinions rather than generalize off your experiences, which is what grifters excel at.
Private sector investment.
Dude, can I imagine what it would be like if he stayed in the Rays, Lamau? Yes, a beautiful prospect for an American future. Okay? Excuse me. In my mind, he's still in the Rays. That's why I'm writing him in.
From domestic and foreign companies investing in America. In America. Not the stuff of shipping jobs overseas for cheaper labor and bringing back a product to America. We're building it here and sending it overseas. And look at the results. Across the board, unemployment is down to 4.1%. And every month that Vice President Harris and I have been in office, we've created jobs every single month. The nation has now created 16 million jobs since I've come to office, more jobs created in a single presidential term than any time in American history. Our GDP shows our economy grew at 10% under my administration. Unemployment reached the lowest level in 50 years. We're also told inflation couldn't come down without massive job losses or sending the economy into economic recession. Once again, outside experts were wrong. Inflation has come down. Wages have gone up faster than prices. Interest rates are down. Record 19 million new business applications have been filed for. The stock market continues to reach new heights. We've got more work to do, though.
Can I write you in? Yeah, if you want.
Keep getting prices down.
I got the same level of chances as the Green Party, so.
Like more affordable housing, extending what I've done for seniors and lowering prescription drug costs by letting Medicare negotiate the prices, make sure that's available to everyone. And by the way, what we've done so far, just when we brought down the prices for seniors under Medicare, it saved the taxpayers billions of dollars. Billions of dollars. Saved the taxpayers billions of dollars. That's important to note, because they don't have to pay the exorbitant and irrational prices that these companies are charging. The simple fact is we've gone from economy in crisis to literally having the strongest economy in the world. And but we've got more work to do. We've got more work to do to deal with the things I've just mentioned, and we're going to have to deal with unforeseen cost of what this hurricane is going to cost. It's going to cost a lot of money. And I'm going to probably have to ask the Congress before we leave for more money to deal with some of those problems. But that remains to be seen. I'll take a few questions before I turn it over to you. Pick out people.
Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead, Josh.
Thanks again for doing this, Mr. President. Two questions. The first, Florida Senator Marco Rubio described today's jobs report as having fake numbers. What do you make of that, and how worried are you that many Americans are hearing that the jobs numbers aren't real?
Well, look, I'm going to be very careful here. If you notice, anything the MAGA Republicans don't like, they call fake. Anything.
Look.
The job numbers are what the job numbers are. They're real. They're sincere. They're what we are. And by the way, just look at how the EU talks about us, how they like to have an economy like ours. Just talk about the rest of the world looks at us and what we're doing.